There were chaotic scenes in Gaza earlier today as the latest hostage release got underway. Hamas has now freed 8 more hostages, 3 of them Israelis and 5 others from Thailand. Israel, for its part, is now preparing to release another 110 Palestinian prisoners. This is the third exchange since the first phase of a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip took hold earlier this month. The truce, of course, aimed at winding down the deadliest and most destructive war ever fought between Israel and Hamas. Well, France 24's Mark Owen is covering all of this for us now from Tel Aviv. He joins me live from there. Mark, first of all, tell us a bit more about the hostages who were released today.
So it's 3 Israelis, it's 5 Thai nationals. We're finding it very difficult to get details about the Thai nationals, even though there has been a group here in the square kind of lending support to them. However, we can give you more details about the Israeli nationals. Agam Berger, 20 years old. She was one of the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, spotters who were kidnapped from a military base near to the southern border with the Gaza Strip. She was released in Jabalia, in the outskirts of the Gaza City a little earlier. That was an event once again stage managed by Hamas as a kind of show of strength. It took place in front of the Adnan hospital, which has been particularly damaged by the Israeli bombardment. In fact, all around rubble could be seen. So Agam Berger now back in Israeli hands. Meanwhile, the next release was down in Khan Yunis. 2 Israeli hostages, Arvel Yehud, 29 years old. She was kidnapped from a kibbutz. She's been brought up there. Basically, she's one of the civilians who was supposed to be released before, and her non-release was one of the issues that put the whole ceasefire agreement into jeopardy. Israel was saying that Hamas wasn't fulfilling its part of the bargain in not releasing her. But now she is out, along with an 80-year-old man. He's called Gadi Moshe Moses, from the same kibbutz. His partner was tragically killed on the 7th of October 2023 during the Hamas atrocity. But he is now out, getting back to his family, hopefully within the hours to come. But of course, both hostages, all 3 hostages, need to undergo the usual medical and psychological assessment at the hands of the medical authorities here in Israel. He, I can tell you, 80 years old, known for his agricultural knowledge. He's lectured on the subject, and in the kibbutz where he lived, he was known for making things grow, for helping people with their plants, their fruit, basically creating crops for the whole community to try and feed themselves. So someone who has a reputation of being very peaceful, very learned, and now freed by Hamas and back in Israeli hands.
Mark, what kind of reaction has there been now there in Tel Aviv, particularly where you are in a hostage square now as this news has come out?
It's a ritual for the crowds to gather. Everything is beamed on a big screen. We've been watching the scenes unfold from Jabalia and from Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. And there's been a whole mixture of people cheering, but also people crying. It's been a very difficult time for many people to come to terms with what's going on. And of course, everybody seems to have a story to tell about the hostages, about someone they knew or someone who may have been involved. And of course, the emotions are very, very high here, I can tell you. Just across from where I am standing a few moments ago, Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's envoy, was scooted across the square with his security detail. We talk about the scenes of chaos in Khan Yunis earlier when 2 hostages were released. There was a similar, smaller scale chaotic scrum as Witkoff was going across the square. And there was a mix of people, to be fair, some shouting, thank you for getting the hostages free, but others shouting, hey, what about the others? What are you doing to help them? So it's very much a mixed bag in terms of how things have been done, how things have been handled, and what people think about it here. But I think overall, it's been a very positive and I hesitate to say cheerful, that's probably the wrong word. I think there's been a sense of relief wafting across the square, and people hopeful that this will continue and more hostages will be freed.
Mark, thank you for that. France 24's Mark Owen in Tel Aviv. We're going to talk more about all of this now with Middle East specialist Yossi Mekelberg, who joins me live from London. Yossi, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Now, talking not long ago, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, slammed what he called the, quote, shocking scenes of this hostage release. What did you think of about what we could call the staging of these releases by Hamas?
Good afternoon. I think parading hostages is unacceptable. It's against international convention. It's inhumane. These people suffered a lot. To have a single woman surrounded by so many men, heavily armed, photographed, paraded in front of 1,000 people, then the others just march. This is we think, you see the crowds there. This is scary. I think the least humane thing they could do is let this exchange of hostages to go smoothly in a way that they hand it to the Red Cross, then to the Israeli forces, not adding to the terrible trauma that these people have suffered already.
And you talk about things going smoothly. I mean, people could say that this first phase of the ceasefire so far has gone relatively smoothly. It is thought, though, that the second and eventual third phases will be much more difficult. Why is that?
Yeah, and I think, yes, so far, very few hitches. And whenever there were some hitches, the two sides, with the help of the mediators, managed to overcome them. And we see this continue relatively orderly. But we are entering, and that's why the special envoy, President Trump envoy, is right now in Israel, Zivikov, is to ensure that the negotiation that's supposed to start on Monday, since the beginning of the truce, will take place, will start at least. Because then we're moving into something which is a bit different for both sides. For Israel, the end of phase 2 means end of war, and within the Israeli government, especially the far right, there are members that are very much against it. Hamas, it means the release of all the hostages, which means what they see in many ways is as the guarantee to a certain extent, they won't have it anymore, and what then will stop Israel from renewing the war. So it's not only about the details, it's also building trust and accepting that this war should come to an end.
Indeed. I mean, but we kind of keep coming down to this key point, which is that Israel and Hamas have long said they are committed to wiping each other out. How can you move forward on ending a war if you're committed to wiping the other side out?
Well, this is one of the tragedies of most war. The demonization and the humanization of each other, and believing that the only way for them to prevail is by eliminating completely the other side. It's obviously it's immoral, but it's also unachievable, even if they want to do so. Just increase suffering, perpetuate suffering without a resolution. And there is another way. That's the reason that the mediators, the wider international community, is so important. Put pressure on the sides to reach an agreement that will see. This has been now nearly 16 months with terrible carnage, terrible suffering, so many deaths and devastation, and to try to move to something else, it will need to reach this agreement, move then to the third phase of reconstructing Gaza. But when this is done, also move into dealing with all the root causes of this conflict. But this probably also will need different discourse, a very engaged international community, but I assume also new leaderships.
Now, of course, the details of this current deal were hammered out with the help of Qatari mediators, Egyptian mediators, and U.S. mediators under Joe Biden. Of course, it was really under the incoming Trump administration where things seemed to really change, particularly in making the ceasefire happen. Is Donald Trump going to be able to keep the pressure up on both sides to truly end this war, do you think?
No doubt that the Trump factor played a very important role in this, because this agreement, give or take, was there on the card for at least 10 months. But, is in this sense, is determination is going to happen and send this clear message to both sides. This did the trick. But at the same time, Trump sent very contradictory signals to both sides. On the one hand, he says that he wants to bring peace. He wants this agreement to go to see through the three phases and much beyond. But then he talks about moving population, half of the Gaza, maybe more of the population from Gaza, which is basically a transfer. He talks about the possibility of some people around him about Israel annexing the West Bank. Those are very dangerous. This is very dangerous talk. Unless there is more coherent policy, more coherent thinking there that work with both sides and not prejudicing the outcome of any negotiation, probably won't be able to make much progress.
All right, Yossi, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Middle East specialist
Pleasure.
Yossi Mekelberg, thank you.